So Venice. Okay, first thing, public transportation. Public transportation in Italy, you unless you're a zone leader or an AP, you won't drive. And not even all zone leaders drive either. It's mostly for long travels, and in some cities you'll use a lot of train. You'll be riding the train a lot. All your exchanges, which are called scambi in Italy, they'll all be done with train with other missionaries. In your cities, you will either end up doing two different things, one more than the other. It's either all bus. You'll every time you get to a new city, you will go to the public transportation office and get a what's it called? They're not called season passes. That's for like theme parks. They're like the passes, like the Trax Pass or anything here in Provo. As far as here in Provo, yeah, you'll get every month you'll renew because that's how you get to all your appointments. In some cities, you will not only have bus, but you will also have bikes. Most of my cities were bikes. Most Italians travel through bikes when you're actually in the city. Just because, like I said, Italy is built on this old Roman sort of like way of building that every city is supposed to be walkable because they didn't have cars back then. So, and you'll definitely see that because you'll be like, how do cars fit here? How are Italians? Oh, I guess that's probably the most impressive thing. Like, Italians are incredible drivers. They're so good. You're going to be getting on these ginormous, like, huge buses, and they're driving through the most intense traffic at super high speed, swerving and turning and like literally missing other cars by inches. Like, one time I just wanted to do an experiment. I stuck my hand out, and it's easy. You can touch everything. It's so close. But you also have to be careful when you're walking in the streets, because if they're coming behind you, you have to get on the wall to make sure. Sometimes it feels like they're going to hit you, but they won't. Yeah, and as far as like other transportations, if you get to really big cities like Milan, Torino, you'll be hitting the subway system that's those big cities have built, or kind of like a tram system, which kind of like San Francisco, where you have like the trolleys that go through the railroad on the street sort of thing, except they're not really railroad things, but bigger cities have those. But most of your cities, you're just going to have bus and bike for the most part as far as transportation. In Venice, the whole area is called Venezia. Well, I guess they call it the Friuli. That's what it's, the region. Italy's divided into different regions, would be kind of like our states. And in those states, you have a bunch of cities. Venice is definitely the most popular in this region. And a lot of cities are pretty similar. Transportation in Venice. So missionaries don't work in Venice. I mean, they work in Venice, but they don't live in Venice. So Venice is out. It's a city built on water. The actual land city that you live in is called Mestre. And unless you're well, that's where the zone leaders for that. Well, I can't say that because they change all the time. So that's what they used to be. And if you have investigators, or if you have people you want to attract in Venice, which is usually kind of hard because it's very touristy, you'll have the same problems in Florence and Milan, Pisa, Leaning Tower of Pisa. That's in your mission, and some other famous places. We usually didn't do that much attracting there, just because it's so touristy at certain times of the year that it won't really matter that much, because you'll be end up getting people that don't live there, and the process of referral sometimes it's really more effective if you just actually find the people that are there. And so you'll definitely run into a lot of members though, and they'll buy you gelato or ice cream and stuff like that, which is always fun. But so Venice is, when you do go there though, and if you ever do have some work, there are some members that live there, so you'll have the opportunity of going there, eating dinner at their house, and you get to look out the window, and then you just see water in all the streets, which is really amazing on the sunset and all this. You can get as cool as you can think, and that's it. You will forever be awed for like all the amazing things that you can find there. But it's what you think. You go to Venice. There's very tiny little streets, like most Italian cities, but this one's a little more artsy about it. They're called vicoli, little tiny streets. And you'll be walking there. All of a sudden, you'll come out, and it's just the main street, and it's water. The buses there are boats, so you get on these like public huge boats that just go all the way around. Of course, you see the gondolas. You see the men in the striped shirts and singing their Italian romantic songs of people that are on the gondolas, and it's definitely a magical city. It's definitely a city that you would want to go visit. And as far as work there and food there is amazing. Work there is a little harder, like I said, but doable. But mostly you'll be working in like the main city called Mestre. That's where most of your work you'll be done. You can definitely get a lot of bucket list things done there. If you're really on P Day, only on P Day, you can find you can recreate a lot of movie scenes. So if people have ever watched The Italian Job or Indiana Jones or oh gosh, there were some other ones. You can probably do the research. There are certain scenes that are done in a certain way, and we had a missionary. Oh, this is actually a memory that I forgot I had. We had a missionary who was way into the films, and he knew all the places in Venice where these movies took place. And what he did one P Day, he took us on this movie tour, and we went to every place where they shot one of these famous movies that we all loved, and we recreated the scene as if we were the characters. And it was just so fun to recreate these iconic movies, and actually be in Venice doing it. And I don't know, but you'll find so many other, like you'll find Leonardo da Vinci's artwork. You'll find a bunch of other artists. You'll find Burano, which is the famous glass making island. This whole island is just dedicated to making glass. And you can find this is like you have free people that are just making like these amazing glass like pieces of artwork, and there's just glass sticking out of everywhere. There's this glass island. You'll have the masks, the Venetian masks, kind of like the whole little Phantom of the Opera sort of looking thing. And also, I guess there's another big thing. Every February, the whole city dresses in pretty much like Phantom of the Opera stuff. The whole city turns into this old Venetian sort of like Renaissance sort of thing. So like that morning, everyone comes out, the women in huge dresses and the men in like these fancy tuxes and everything, and other different costumes, jokers, like everyone with a mask. Everyone is wearing a mask. And the whole city turns, and several cities actually do this. There's a city still in that same area called Cividale. If you ever serve in Udine, you'll have the chance to go see that. But there's one day in the whole year, the whole city goes medieval. So like, people come out in like armor, or they come out with like rags as if they were like poor, like medieval sort of like people. They lay hay in the streets. There's horses. They go all out, the whole city. And several other cities, like I said, do different things like that. But yeah, I mean, as far as like experiences there, it'll be a handful, that's for sure. Yeah.
It was in Pozzuoli, so it was just outside of Naples, and it was also really pretty there. There are not a lot of sisters that serve in the Naples zone because of it's known for being quite a dangerous area, or at least Naples is, the city of Naples. And so sisters don't serve in Naples, at least for now. But so it was just the two of us in my area, and we were with two elders, and it was just a branch. And it was a really interesting branch. It was probably divided up into 3 parts, and there was also another military base nearby. So there were a lot of Americans that didn't want to live on the base that lived out in like the Italian neighborhoods, and so they lived near our branch in Pozzuoli. And so the branch is probably divided in 1/3 Italian, 1/3 American, and 1/3 African. So you had all different cultures going on, and it was actually really fun. You got like the best of 3 worlds. And it was just really pretty. Pozzuoli is a beautiful city, just gorgeous, and it's right near the shore, near the ocean. And so there's a boardwalk in the city, and yeah, it was just a really quaint, really cute town. And so you have like your Italian side of Pozzuoli, and then you have your, I guess, African side. We take this big, nasty bus to like about 45 minutes away to these big city called Pozzuoli, where it's known for mostly Africans that live there, and so you'd have different sides, and Italians live there as well. But that was really fun to just be able to teach the Italian culture, and then also it just felt like I was serving a mini mission in Africa. And I loved the Africans. That's where I really started to teach them and get to know them. And then Naples is right nearby. It's not in our area, but we were able to go there for P Day. And when I was there, we had district meeting there, but I don't think they do district meeting there anymore. Also in that area, they speak the dialect of Napoletano. So I guess Neapolitan, I guess that's how you'd say it. And that is a completely different language, and they speak that pretty heavily there, but they do speak Italian. But it's fun. I have been in some lessons where some people just like, they forgot their Italian, and so you're just struggling to like, and praying to be able to understand what they're saying with their Napoletano. The pizza is fantastic there. Eat as much pizza as you can get, because Naples is known. It is like the capital of pizza of the world. So you will enjoy some pretty dang good pizza there. There's also a volcano nearby, Mount Vesuvius. It's actually in Naples, and so you can see that. And our church was actually so it was a branch, and it wasn't in a typical church building, but it was in, I believe it was just like some apartment building, huge apartment building that we just bought out. I think it actually used to be like some kind of grocery store. And so it's a really interesting layout of a church. It's like 3 levels. Yeah, I loved it. It was really good. Definitely have funny memories from being on that bus that we would take out to that city where most Africans lived. Yeah, they just, I don't know, it was just, it was kind of hit or miss with the bus, and because it was such a long bus ride, you'd want to get a seat, or else you would just be standing the whole way. And more often than not, it would be chock full of people standing up. And I just remember it would get to our bus stop near our apartment, and the doors would open, and it would just be chock full to the brim of people, and mostly Africans, because that's where they're heading. They would come and work in Naples, and then they would take their bus all the way back. And so you would just have to like dive in and squeeze in. So you get used to it. But just, I guess, I don't know, I had some definitely fun, colorful experiences on the bus. So just try to get a seat whenever you can, and avoid the crazy people. But you'll be all right. Like, I should have said this my first city, but you just feel protected. And I think if I went back now and I was walking around just not as a missionary, I would definitely feel a lot more fear. But I just think that the Lord protects you so much. And I remember asking my trainer this, that I just walking through crazy Sicily and crossing like kind of crazy streets, and she was just like always had a smile on her face, and I just thought, like, is she scared? Like, this is kind of scary. Like, if my parents knew I was here. But one time I asked her, I was just like, so do you get scared, or are you not really scared because you're a missionary? And she's like, yeah. Because I'm a missionary, I don't feel that need to like fear. So, I mean, it's important to be smart and to follow mission rules and follow traffic rules and crossing the street and things like that. And obviously follow the Spirit, but generally you'll be protected. Definitely. We taught this one man named Pepe, and he, this was in Pozzuoli in Naples, and he was this like 74-year-old man. And when I came into the area, the sisters before me had found him, and he was golden. He was so good, and he was such an amazing man. I respect him so much for what he has given up, and that is not a difficult thing. That is a pretty big feat to find an old Italian Catholic man willing to take the discussions and eventually get baptized. And he gave up his, he was practicing a Catholic religion, and he gave up alcohol, he gave up smoking, he gave up so much. He gave up, he risked family relationships for the church because he felt so strongly about it. And he's definitely not like your typical sweet, like grandfatherly man. He, even though he has really sweet intentions, he's just like really intense when he talks to you. But anyway, I remember a really sweet experience that so we would teach him on a bench outside of his store. He and his wife owned a store nearby, and so we teach him on a bench. And so we would often teach him in the daytime, and then we'd have to run and get a bus and take it to another city. And I remember it was my companion and me, and we had to go. We were saying, okay, Pepe, like, I think we ended with a prayer, and we said, we have to go catch the bus. And all of a sudden he started talking about, started sharing an experience with us. He's like, yeah, the other day my cart broke down, and my companion and I were like looking at each other like, oh, he's gonna go into this whole like monologue, and we have to go. And he started talking about how like his car broke down and something like that with his car, and he was just like really frustrated, and he didn't know what to do, and he was just going on and sharing all these details, and all of a sudden he just started to break down a little bit and just started to cry, and he just said, and I prayed to Heavenly Father to help me and to help me get this fixed. And he's definitely not an emotional man. And so it was just a really sweet experience. And he just said how the Lord blessed him, and he knew that the Lord answered his prayer and helping him fix his car. And we just had to like stop and just like forget everything and just listen. And it was a really touching experience. That was really neat.
Sicily was a lot of fun, maybe the most exotic region of our mission just because it was the most far south. And so weather was great. It didn't get too cold in the winter time. I remember I was there in November or December with an Italian missionary from the northern area of Italy. And he just couldn't believe how warm it was in November and December. And he would say, oh, I cannot believe how warm this is. I've never seen weather like this in my whole life. And so he really liked that. So they have great weather and lots of decent public transportation. I never drove a car a mile in my whole mission. Did a lot of walking, and every other kind of public transportation you could think of: taxi, bus, train, subway, boats in between the mainland and Sicily. And so, yeah, I did 6 months in Catania, Italy, which is just on the eastern sea coast of Sicily. And so it's fun being down there and traveling to the other regions to see other missionaries and conferences and things like that, because all the major cities are along the ocean due to like porting and stuff and shipping. That's where all the major cities were established. And so beautiful views, beautiful beaches. And we did get to go to the beaches in the wintertime when no one was there. And so although we didn't swim, it was still fun to be there, and that was a lot of fun for the missionaries. But Sicily's terrific, probably the most traditional and areas where the Apostle Paul had come through, and so lots of history there, lots of European history. And so they have a very traditional, rigid work schedule in Sicily. And rigid in the sense that they won't change it, not necessarily rigid in hard, effective work produced. But their work day, I think it starts at about 8, and it goes until about 1 in the afternoon. And then they take a sacred and consistent break from about 1 to 4, when the business is shut down. And just like the business is shut down at the mall at 9, they bring down those big metal gates. They do that for all the businesses, the optometrists and the shops and the lunch places, and they shut down from about 1 to 4. And they'll go home and they'll get undressed and they'll get in their pajamas and they'll go to bed, literally go to bed. And then they'll get up and get work again from about 4:30 or 5 until about 9 or 10. And they have dinner late. They'll have a late dinner at about 10, 10:30. And so at night when we're getting ready to go to bed, you can hear pots and pans and smell steaks and pork chops and pasta in in our neighbors' apartments. And so that was interesting. But yeah, it's just as inconsiderate to go knock on somebody's door at 2:30 in the afternoon as it would be to knock on their door at 2:30 a.m. Because I remember one time we did it. I was with a companion and I said, let's go do some finding right now on our lunch. I forget what we were doing. And he said, I don't recommend that. And I said, yeah, let's just try it. Let's just see what's going on. You know, I've always heard that, but let's just try it. And so he says, okay. And so we went to this gentleman's door. We knocked on his door and he says, who is it? And we announce ourselves and he comes to the door and he just shouted at us about how inconsiderate it was to knock on his door at this time. And he was in his pajamas and he says, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. And he just screamed at us. And he says, do you know what time it is? Do you know how rude this is? And he says, leave, I'm trying to sleep. And so he says, I told you. And I said, yeah, you're right. And so I didn't try that again, but it was hard for me to believe that people could, I don't know, feel that way about sleeping during that time of day. But every now and then we'd catch a little nap with them, even though we were supposed to study and prepare during that time. But yeah, they like their afternoon nap and they believe that it's necessary. And so yeah, that's definitely a part of Italian culture. But as far as businesses go, I don't remember any like major industries or big businesses down there in Sicily, but a lot of, you know, family businesses, family restaurants, family shops, things like that. There's an Italian church, a major church, Catholic church in every region or every city. And in one area, we got close with the don of that church. His name was Don Antonio, and we had been cleaning his church for a while. That's how we became friends with him. And over time, he came to really enjoy the missionaries. And so it was fun walking around with him around the city because he knew everybody. And it felt like being with a celebrity. It felt like being with like a high-powered politician, because he would kind of talk down to everybody in the city that he would see. And it was like he was everybody's grandpa or everybody's uncle. And so we'd walk down the street and he'd go into a bar. In Italy, a bar is just like a coffee shop. So we'd go in there and he'd order a coffee and he'd buy us a croissant or a juice. And some 2 or 3 guys would come in and he would talk down to them in a silly type of way, as if he were their uncle or their dad, and say, why haven't you called me? Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? And they'd say, oh, I'm sorry, Don Antonio. And they kind of avoid him and say, no, you're not. You're not sorry. You've been saying that since you were a little kid. You're just like your father. And he'd say, I wish you were more like these American guys. These are good guys right here. And I always felt so proud to be with him, just that he liked us. And so yeah, we got to go up into his church, which is more like a castle, and he lived in the top floor, and just felt honored to be up there and to be in his presence and in his good graces more than anything, just to be accepted by him. And that was neat, because I remember up there eating lunch with him with his pride. He had jewelry and paintings, and it was interesting being up there, because I remember thinking that this is something that a tourist could never experience. Probably for any amount of money, you couldn't come up here and eat lunch with Don Antonio and have his maid prepare this wonderful Italian lunch for you. Her name was Angela. She's a really nice lady. And so I remember just feeling blessed and happy to be up there and experience that unique piece of Italian culture. And so I enjoyed that. But every region has just like a major church, and then there's a priest who's presides over that area. And it's fun just seeing how everybody's connected, because they all are born, and a lot of them just stay in the same area. Yeah, one interesting thing that I did notice about Sicily is just how a lot of times the people are very narrow-minded and simple, and that they don't really think beyond their what they know. And so in that sense, I did meet people from small towns in Sicily that had never literally been outside their city, which was, about a city as small as any university town, as Norman, Oklahoma, or Provo, Utah, or any major, not bigger than that, not a huge industrial hub, but just a regular city. And they've never been outside that area ever. And I remember meeting them and just being fascinated that they had never been to Rome, they had never been to France, they had never even been outside of Sicily nor out of their city. And so I remember asking them, so you've never been to Rome, you've never been to Milan? And they'd look at me and they say, why do I want to go up there? I have everything I need here. I got my food, I got my grocery store, I got my brother that lives over here, and I got the guy down the street that fixes my shoes. And they'd say, so why do I need to leave? What am I going to get? And I just remember being fascinated that these people have lived and died their whole lives in these small areas, and their family owns this apartment or something like that. And so I don't think that's something that you see in other regions. It's just that tendency to just be so simple that you're not interested in anything the world has to offer. Just live and die in your own little city. And so, but they take great pride in where they're from, and they definitely represent their culture and their region. And so that was interesting.